Hey guys, it's Kavik again, and I had a request from Schaefer1212 on r/waroftheroses. He wanted to see a video about a Barbarian class. I don't know if you have it, but you could come up with something like it, just light armor and a two-handed axe. As you probably have realized, I mostly play crossbow, so this was a bit of a challenge. These are the two builds that I came up with. They're very, very similar. The main difference is that in this build, you have the longer axe and are unable to bandage, although you cannot bleed. And in this one, you are able to bandage. So of the two, I've decided that I like this one the most. And we'll go through piece by piece, just like we did the crossbow. I'll try to explain the choices that I made. We'll start with perks. Obviously, you have to go man-at-arms. Decreases the time it takes to switch weapons, which could be pretty handy, but he wanted to see just light armor and a two-handed axe, so I try to avoid switching weapons as much as possible. If anything, I'll switch to the dagger. Shield Breaker allows your character to do more damage to shields, and we're probably going to be fighting a lot of people with shields, and axes are pretty good against them anyway. So I'm going to go ahead and take Shield Breaker just so we can cut through them a little bit faster. Riposte enables follow-up attacks after parrying. I kind of went with the spirit of the Barbarian, and we're going to go in swinging and take down as many people as we can before we die. We won't always die, but we're not going to be blocking quite as often as a more finesse-type class. We'll get in, do some damage, and get out is going to be our basic strategy with this. Break block we're going to take for the same reason as Shield Breaker. We do want our opponents to have to ready another parry. I just hold the same one against us. That makes us look kind of weak. Hamstring is pretty good, as well as push. Instead of taking push, I've decided we're going to use our light armor and kind of dart around. And hamstring would be very good, but I'm not that good at hitting the back of somebody's legs. So if you are, you may want to take that over break block. But for me, I'm going to take break block. Defensive perks, obviously no shield, we're Barbarian. So the options here are hardened, lets you get revived faster, but I'm not really going to mess with that. Thick Skin increases your armor's absorption stat, so you actually take less damage from attacks that penetrate your armor, and we don't have much armor, so that's a good thing. And then the other two, these are the two differences between these two builds. Oblivious I tried for a while. It seemed to be very in the spirit of Barbarian. You feel no pain, you're immune to bleeding and other damage over time effects, but you cannot be bandaged. And we have kind of a way around that, but after doing a lot of testing, I've decided that regenerative is definitely the best. Oblivious can work, but you really need to be level 20 to be able to take certain officer perks. Otherwise, you're just going to die far more often than you should. So we're going to take regenerative. Supportive perks. We're going to take Surgeon. Being able to tag targets isn't going to work quite as well when we're playing a melee class. We're going to be up close and personal, not really have time to deal with that. Sterilized bandages. Your bandages give you full health, so that's going to be really important. We're going to be in combat a lot. Duck out for just a second, bandage to full. It's going to save you a lot of time. The other two options are revive other people faster. We're probably not going to get a lot of chance to do that. Or Second Opinion. You get to see special health status icons on enemies. This is going to be very, very important for the way that we're playing. In general, we're going to go in swinging and try to get people to bleed, and then stop them from bandaging while focusing on other targets. So as soon as we can see that they're bleeding, people become much less of a threat because all they're thinking about is backing up and trying to get a bandage off. So you just need to stop them from doing that and you'll be fine. Movement perks, these haven't changed at all. You don't need to jump high or climb ladders fast or fall far. You need to accelerate quickly and run fast. So I'm not going to go over those completely again. These are the only two good ones. Officer perks, here's a bit of a change from before. There's a damage buff, an armor buff, and a small heal over time effect. There's other ones too. Ammo regen, obviously we don't need. Move speed might be okay, but we're in light armor, we're already going to be faster than everybody anyway. Mounted speed, we're not mounted, we don't really care. And this Berserker one is pretty good. It increases maximum health, but you can't be revived. So if you don't trust people to revive you, then you may as well consider this one. But for our purposes, this playstyle that I've figured out is pretty fun. We're going to take the damage bonus, just because it's a lot of fun to be able to charge into a fight. Suddenly you're doing bonus damage and swinging your giant axe around. We're going to take Courage, which is the small heal over time effect. The reason we're going to take this is for bleeds and to be able to stay up close and personal in combat. Anytime we start bleeding and this cooldown is up, we're going to immediately shout, and the heal over time will stop the bleeding. You'll find yourself saved a lot of times. We're also going to always be a squad leader in this scenario. In these early stages of the game, there aren't a whole lot of other people who are level 20, so if you are level 20, this is very important. And that's why I went with this build over the other. The other relies on this buff to stay alive for any time at all, which means you have to be level 20. With this one, it's just a nice bonus, so I'll be able to show you how it works, but if you don't have it, it won't be the end of the world. Alright, our main weapon, two-handed axes and clubs. We only really have two choices here. The Executioner's Axe and this one. Basically, the reason I am going with the Executioner's Axe is it has less of a dead zone. This one has a longer reach, but if people get in close to you, it's a lot harder to do anything to them. With this axe, your downward attack is a thrust with the head, and with this one, it's an upward sweeping motion, which does a lot more damage. This thrust is easier to hit, but this one is brutal. So we're going to stick with this one, it's a lot more fun. And the execution animation for it is, in my opinion, the best in the game. With this one, you pull out your dagger and use that. We're going to go Imperial because we're Barbarian. We want the most damage. We want to tear people up. Standard steel, and I've actually changed things up a bit from my standard. Normally I go hollow grind on everything because we want to penetrate armor, but for this I'm going to go convex, which is more damage against lighter armors. It's more damage overall. We're going to kind of hunt down archers for the most part. We will fight plate wearers, but one of the most fun parts of this class is circling behind a group of archers and taking them from behind before they know what happened. So we're going to take convex and standard. Sidearm, this doesn't really matter. We're going to switch to this as little as possible. I chose battle axe just to stick with the axe theme. Probably not ever going to use this. Dagger, we can't really change anything. Helmets. Your options here are cloth hood, arming cap, and leather cap. Leather cap is the most protection. Arming cap gives you a bit more damage absorption, but we want to be super fast. We're going to go cloth hood. We're using an executioner's axe. We're going to wear an executioner's hood. Light armor, there's only one choice, and that's our class. Alright, so now that we've got our class set up, I'm going to go over some basic strategy, some tactics to use. All of this footage is from last night when I was testing these things before I decided on the best possible build that I believe that I've found. So you will see me using both weapons. I switched back and forth between them throughout the night to try to determine which I felt was better. You'll see in these fights I just kind of dart in and do as much damage as possible, and then escape, heal up where I can. I'm not actively engaging, especially against people in full plate. You can't really stand up toe-to-toe with them unless you are really good at blocking. So I tend to dart around and do damage where I can. Like I said earlier, the downward attack for this axe is a thrust motion, which is a lot easier to hit, and you saw it in that last fight. As you see, the thrust motion is really easy to hit compared to others. You're a lot less likely to friendly fire in your teammates. And when you do hit, I hit him, I believe in his neck, possibly his face, and did 77 damage. So when people only have 100 health, that's quite a bit. As you can see here, I have switched to the Executioner's Axe, which is the one that I recommend. If you feel like you need a little extra range, you can use the other, but there's less of a dead zone on this axe. Since I was running into two archers, I decided to run at them at an angle, make their shot a little harder, and then sprint. This is the very first game I played with this axe. This is before I had things figured out quite as well. But as you can see, it does quite a bit of damage. And the general strategy is get in, hit them, run away, bandage. This is the class that can bandage. The one that I was playing before is not. And then once you're back to full health, chase them down and kill them. I tend to save my sprint ability. It's actually called tackle. You activate that by hitting F. I tend to save that for escaping with this build. If I was wearing full plate, I might use it to advance or charge an enemy a lot more often. But since I'm in leather, I usually use it to get away. You saw there 68 damage is pretty good. And then we hit our heal over time, run around the corner. The bleeding would have stopped on its own, but start to bandage anyway, because we have the perk that causes bandages to heal to full health. In that case, I used it to charge, because there was no one attacking me. And now we use it defensively. Throw our heal over time buff back up. We're not bleeding yet. Now we're bleeding. And we continue to run away. It ticks. We're not bleeding anymore. And that gives us plenty of time to get away and bandage. Run back to the safety of the archers. You always want to be approaching archers from an angle, which is a mistake that a lot of people make, is running at them straight on. So heal over time, circle around behind the tree, and try to take this guy out. The first shot already made him bleed. At that point, all you really need to do is refuse to let them bandage. There's the best execution animation. Once you have a target bleeding with this weapon, it's not really that much of a priority to chase them down and continue to do damage. All you really need to do is some light harassment. Just threaten an attack so that they feel scared to stop and bandage. As long as you can do that, you might not get the epic kill with your axe to their face in those scenarios, but they will die. And he's bleeding, but I don't feel like I'm in that much danger. The heal over time works on squad mates as well. As you can see, there's 3 people nearby in my squad, so they're all affected. But I primarily used it for myself in that scenario. Alright, in that scenario, it was a 2 versus 1 against a shield user and a plate, and then their teammates were squad spawning on top of them. So I decided to run back and heal up. Threw up my heal over time, and luckily only one guy chased me. So I do end up switching to the one-handed axe at this point. I decided to flip it around and try the spike side to see how that worked out. That's the best, that's the most fun part of using a two-handed axe. That's my general goal every time I play with either of these weapons, is to sneak up on an archer and chop them in the head. And you can see it's very effective. Both axes are capable of this damage, by the way. I just happened to be playing with this one when this happened. But if you can do the overhand chop against leather caps, you will get a lot of kills. Definitely practice a bit to judge the range. This is maybe the 3rd game I'd played with a two-handed axe, 3rd or 4th. Alright, and this final clip I think perfectly demonstrates the essence of my philosophy for playing this class. Is get in, swing, try to do some damage, but always have an escape route planned. If you have to sprint, if you have to hide behind a tree, whatever. And with that, I think the guide is complete.